my energetic beings. Welcome to Meet Me for Coffee. I'm your host, holistic shamedium and subtle energy surgeon, Tanya D. And today's featured guest is Kathleen MacKenna. And Kathleen has been practicing physical therapy for 33 years. And now, like myself, she incorporates these subtle energy methods and techniques, along with movement therapy, Chinese medicine, and even spiritual philosophy, meditation, yoga, and acupuncture. So with all of that, let's welcome Kathleen MacKenna to the show.
Hello, Tanya D. How are you doing today?
Magical, like always. It's so great to be with you this morning for coffee.
Yeah, it's a nice day to be talking.
And I'm grateful that you're able to be on the show with me today. Can you share with my friends and guests what your background is?
Sure. So I am from a small Midwest town in Illinois. I grew up in an Irish Catholic family. I'm one of 12 kids. And when I was born, I became very aware of the dysfunction of our family, the areas where it needed to be healed. And I decided as a child that I was going to be a healer. So I went to school, became a physical therapist, and started to notice, well, really, I was doing this as a kid. You know, like, for example, in Johann Sebastian Bach's family, everybody was a musician. Well, in my family, I was born to be a therapist. I was born to be a healer. We really start practicing our art form as a child. And so I did. I wanted healing for my family and my family members. So I went into medicine, but medicine's very limited, and that drove me to search out the spiritual side and the subtle energy side of healing.
So that is great. I love how you're incorporating all of this together. But so how else did you arrive at using subtle energy in your practice? Like, what role does this kind of play for you?
I'm a curious sort. And I am never satisfied. I love to learn, so I study every day. I was a horrible student. I don't like to be taught. I like to just learn on my own. But in working with physical conditions, I noticed that after using all the principles of physical therapy, if you utilize that paradigm for thinking, this person should be better. But I often noticed how working with someone physically often provided an emotional release. And especially in touching people, people start sharing wounds that they literally were carrying on their bodies. And then my spirit guides were always with me, telling me which way to go. Part of the reason why I ended up in utilizing, I don't do acupuncture. I'm not licensed to do that. But in my studies of Chinese medicine, there was this collective energy and holistic knowing about the mind, body, spirit. So that was really my affirmation that I was feeling subtle energy always, and only to find out we all are. But culturally in the West, that's not provided for or nurtured. So when I started to incorporate subtle medicine, like telling people, you know, hey, do you notice this happening to you? If I'm working up in your left shoulder, your right foot is giving off some information. Start making connections for people in their healing, that the problem where we locate it is really where the pain is. That's where we are registering it, but that's not the source of the problem. Sometimes clients, deceased family members would start to assist us, especially if there's heartache around a problem. People often would have some unfinished business with someone who had crossed over. If we would incorporate that in the healing and in the touching, people would get better exponentially if we would include the spirit and the emotions and the mind while we were working on the body. And so that took me off into a direction that my field as a legal entity does not include. And because I'm a very principled person, I decided to go off in a tangent where I could practice freely and according to my guidance without compromising my profession. Because I like to respect everyone and I like to also be true to myself. So I took subtle energy and said, this is who I am, this is what I do, I know it works, and my outcomes have just been improving ever since.
Wow, that is just seriously, it's magical. So, how do you go about integrating the physical with the spiritual?
Oh, okay. So I like what I do, I start with my training. Well, first of all, looking at the human body already is telling me what's going on spiritually by people's sacred anatomy and how they're aligned or they're not aligned. So my reading starts visually, just watching someone move, and movement actually is subtle energy. Because when a person's body does not move in a coordinated or a free fashion, I've already been given great insight to where the dysfunction is lying. When I learned about the 7 aspects of the divine, that's what I call the 7 chakras, that right away, each one of those categories tell me where someone has been out of alignment. And those are like power sources into the body. They actually feed the channels, the Chinese meridian channels. If you think of them as great big cities and intersections with lots of energy coming into those centers, you can solve a lot of problems, but sometimes little country roads need attention. Also, the surface of the body, as described by Chinese medical practitioners, have all their presentations to the internal organs. And then I like to incorporate movement because people need to be empowered to heal themselves. So I like to always give someone something to do because really in the end, healing is up to the individual and their acceptance to take on the role of what healing is. They have to do the work. I always tell people I'm just a tour guide, but if you want to know more about who you are and what you are, you need to do the work. So I do the reading and then I give them things to work on. And yeah. So that's how I incorporate the mind, because the mind determines what the mind makes the body move. If the mind is not in alignment with what the task is, that's where we have to go work. We have to become aware of what our thoughts are and what we're permitting into our mind, which really drives movement, mood, motion, action, interaction. So I do a lot of coaching on what you think about because that's going to determine the results that you get. You want to become a master of your mind. When you train your mind and discipline your mind, then the result is you determine your health by your actions. But you do have to take action. Even changing your thoughts is taking an action.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, why or how did you come up with your business name, Empowered Health Mentoring, and how did all that come about?
That's an excellent question. So the name of my business has changed 3 times. I started out with Harmony Bodyworks because really the body is just a big tuning fork. It sits in the field of mind. Like we all have individual bodies, right? And our body is a tuning fork. If you think about the different chakras, they are all frequencies of energy. And if they're aligned and they're all working well, we have harmonious energy in our body. Then I evolved the name into Harmony Health Coaching because I found that people were far too receptive. They were just receiving. They love to be touched. I have a wonderful blessing and skill and gift in touch. But I don't want people to become dependent upon me. They need to, like when their back goes out or they start hurting in the middle of Saturday night, they don't have an appointment till Tuesday. I have failed to teach them something if they can't care for themselves. So finally, in my own evolution and understanding spiritually what health is, I realized giving people the knowing of empowerment is the greatest gift that they could receive from me, because empowerment is responsibility. When one becomes responsible for their health, they have power because they're going to do something about it. So that's why I changed my name to Empowered Health Mentoring, is helping people establish the correct thinking that will facilitate health, healing, and wholeness. The mind is all around us. It's everywhere. We're all in each other's mind energy all the time. But in our own higher self, if we learn how to tune each of our chakras to bring in the kind of information that we want, then we learn to love ourselves effectively and fully. But we have to pick the right choice. We have to choose the right thoughts and the right habits to support that. And that's why I named my evolutionary name became Empowered Health Mentoring, because I want people to become aware of how they think.
Absolutely. That is amazing. And it's so true, actually. So how do you coach clients to discover their thoughts and even their habits, their thought habits? How does that all come into play?
So one thing I like people to do is to journal down every day, like what their day's about. Because if you write something down, number one, it's a record, it's a written record, and only you decide what you're going to write. If we rely on our memory, that's not a very good tool because our memory can be very distracted. So also I coach people into noticing the words that they feel. And a lot of times we work on language, like what are you saying? Why are you saying it? Just like even dealing with people in pain in their body, I often say, is that a pain? Because the word really matters. Is that a pain or is that just a sensation? It's surprising how many people are not in body. Like they're not aware of what their body's telling them. So getting people to match their language with their actions and understanding how much words drive motivation or limit it. So I like them to journal, and then I remind them in conversation, well, look at the word that you used. And they suddenly start becoming aware of what their thoughts are, and then become aware that they're choosing their thoughts. I think that's the biggest surprise, people learning that you choose how you think. Your memory was written by you. Your life is a story with the bookends of birth and death. And then all the chapters in between are your life. And I tell people, if you don't like the chapter that you're having, then it's time to write a new one. It's time to change, right? That's what healing is, it's change.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I tell people all the time the same thing, probably a similar language. So I want to know what guided you to create and actually co-found the Spirit Collective. How did all of that come about?
Well, that's a really exciting part of my life. So after my mom died, which was 2017, the first day of January, I had some life eventing. I mean, my life really changed. My mom was a very important person to me. I just stated with her same year she lost a baby. So she lost a little 2-month-old baby in January, and I was born in December of that year. So I came into this life to be of service to her own healing. So when she crossed over, that really opened me to look at my own life and where I wanted it to go. And because I'm from a big family, that was one of the stories I created around, like, oh, look at me, I'm so, diminished because I came from this big family. I was involved, I got involved with Cindy Dale's apprentice program. And what was so fascinating about that was it really opened my mind to all these different ways of looking at subtle energy and to really think differently about my life. And one of the grand healings that I received was to really be part of a collective. I had known that for a while, but working alone is lonely because we are in the world together. And I came across a group of healers that wanted to practice healing with each other. And when the opportunity came up, I offered to be one of the creators, because I'm a very creative person, to create this collective for healing for anyone. And so when I got to be part of that group, willingly, just like I willingly chose to be one of the 12 kids prior to birth, it's like, yeah, this is what my life is about. It's about healing and including as many of those people that are willing to be responsible for who they're being in life, that they can be more. And the power that I experience and continue to experience in the collective is amazing. Like, what I do on my own is really something, but when there's a group of us getting all of our healing powers together for someone to shift in their story or some past, illness, I mean, I really recommend anybody that's never had a collective healing to get on board, because it never ceases to amaze me. And as we practice, we all get stronger in our abilities too. It's really true what it says in the Bible, where 2 or more are gathered in his name, there I am in the midst of them. And you feel that all the time. And it's not limited to Christians. It's this kind of healing is for everyone across the planet, the universe, intergalactically. And that's what the Spirit Collective is about. Who would not want to be part of that? Wow.
Absolutely there. So, I already know this answer, but I just want your take on it. So, what part does love play in healing?
Well, this is my most favorite subject of all. So now I'm going to switch into my scientist. And this was something that I learned in Cindy's class about scalar waves. Basically, I feel that Albert Einstein proved this. He wasn't using these words. I just love astrophysicists because, well, they're scientists and my training is in science, but really healing is an art form, and love is both. Love is the center of the universe. It's what's created everything that we see around us, and love is unconditional, and love is the only reason we heal. And love is that energy that comes in and makes us one with everyone. And really, like in Christianity, they talk about the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And that largely is devoid of the feminine, that statement. I prefer to think of the Trinity this way. There's acceptance. I'm here now, and this is the circumstance in which I live. There's forgiveness, which is the teaching of the Christ. And Christ gave us the Holy Spirit to work on forgiveness. And really, forgiveness is just the ability to integrate the past into, like, pulling all my aspects to the present moment. And what we're gifted with when we're done with that kind of work is love. And love never left us. Love is just a perspective of bringing us into the present moment. But it is what sources the entire energy of creation. It's what healing is, and it's what every sentient being is looking for. So love is the essence of our being here. But love has to be unconditional, and it has to include everyone. And that's why I love the Course in Miracles, because it's all about unearthing those mind habits, egoic as they are, that hold us hostage from having the fullness of our life here, which is first and foremost to love myself and love myself unconditionally. So from my 7 chakras, I can beam out into the universe that kind of energy. If my body's a tuning fork, I want to tune in to what's good, what's wholesome, what's empowering, and what's expansive, which is exactly the opposite of low frequency life here on planet Earth, which is selfish, egoic, judgmental, condemning. It's just the opposite. But there's one power. That power is good, and good created this experience that we're having, and we call that love. That's why I include it in healing, because it really is the only thing there is. It's love.
Absolutely. Actually, I couldn't agree more. It's like it is the center of the universe, that magical little codex, which is absolutely magnificent. So how can folks get in touch with you and experience what you have to offer on not just the collective, but any aspect, I should say?
Well, I was just informed before this call that my website's not working, but empoweredhealthmentoring.com is the name of my website. I'm going to look into what the glitch is, but I'm having lots of electromagnetic glitches this month. Also, if you would like to do group healing that I'm really recommending, because that is done online through spiritcollectivehealers.com. Those are the 2 ways, and yeah, those websites.
That's where the magic is, right? That is awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the group?
I just want to really thank you, Tanya, for having the opportunity to get this kind of healing out there. I'm always surprised that people don't know that these things are available. And what I love about the Spirit Collective, which is where I really got to know you through that, is that it is diversity that really gives us the rich tapestry of this life that, planet Earth. It is our differences. We're not that different. If you develop your skill as a subtle energy reader, and all people read subtle energy, you will start appreciating people and circumstances for what they're here to teach us about life. And it's so then you realize the gem of your own existence. Most people who come in for healing are not perceiving the brilliance of their own light. And that's what I really hope and love and want for all people, is to see their own divinity.
I couldn't agree more, actually. So once again, thanks for joining me for Meet Me for Coffee and my guest, Kathleen MacKenna. I will have all the information in the description at the end of this show. Please reach out to her. She's absolutely fantastic, and I am so grateful that she joined me and met me for coffee today. Ashe. I'll see you on the other side.